Welcome to the channel. I'm actually excited to get this. This is the Gamesir G7 Pro Controller. Excited to get this because, well, I really enjoy the regular old Gamesir G7 SE that I have here. I usually use this when I'm playing controller games on my PC. And this one is nice. It's just wired. So the Pro Edition here adds a couple of things. You get, looks like swappable D-pads if you like that. And you also get wireless. So I'm kind of looking forward to maybe being able to use this wireless. I mean, the wired is fine, but I'm looking forward to trying out the wireless version. Also, we have the TMR sticks that everybody's been going on about recently. So we'll get a chance to play with a hopefully decent controller with these. We need to find out if this controller is decent, though. So let's go ahead and get in this box, see what this thing looks like. So let's see. Looks like, hopefully I don't have to get out my knife. Tear that off. There's one on the other side. At least these companies seem to be learning to make their boxes easier to open. So let's get in here. Try to get in here. All right, so we got the box at least. Hey, we got a controller. We also have, this is kind of a nice touch to have. We have a charging dock. So I could just have this plugged into my desktop charger, which is literally right over there, and just sit the controller in here, have it charged and ready to go whenever. Probably be taking advantage of that. Looks like we've got our 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Collecting some trash here. Here's the controller. Grips feel pretty nice here. Kind of a, not rubbery on the top, but it's rubbery down here. Here's our TMR sticks. Yeah, usually these pop off. Yeah, so it pops off so you can remove the D-pad if you like and replace it with what you want. We may change this one out before we test it, but we'll see. Get this aside. What else we got in here? We have D-pads. We can swap out. Maybe we'll do that, maybe not. I'll set them aside for now. And what do we got under the box? Our cable, exactly like the one that came with the regular old G7. We got some documentation here. Let's see what we got in there. A lot of plastic. So we have probably a link to a Discord, contact information, chicken sticker, Game Pass code. Is there anybody left that hasn't actually used at least one free month of Game Pass? And information, controllers, not a controller, but an owner's manual here. Anything that we need to know here. Now we've got here trigger mode. Apparently it's not a switch. It is hold down a button for 2 seconds. So we'll actually see how that ends up working. And we are probably going to end up using wired connection first because I don't know if this thing actually has any charge or not. Or do we have trigger lock? Oh, okay. Tons of buttons on here. So we'll set this aside for now, see if we need it for anything. Clear off some of this packaging material. We can kind of lay out what we get. So what we get is we get a charging dock, cable, 2.4 gigahertz receiver, and additional choices or D-pads. Now I'm curious here. I did not see. Take this faceplate off. Okay, if I were to swap that out with, say, this, I would end up just looking like that. I guess so. I guess that works. Seems like there might ought to be something else in there. So there's an alignment mark here, so if you can make sure you're putting it on the right way. Maybe we'll go with that one for now. Yeah, I don't see anything else for the plus D-pad to kind of maybe put some plastic around it, so you're going to have some openings here if you use this one. Unless there's something in the box that I missed. So we'll go with this for the moment. So what do we got? We have the usual ABXY buttons. Well, these controllers, you can swap these around. You might be able to do that with this one. We've got some buttons on the bottom here, and I believe you can probably lock these out. I usually lock these out because I don't use them very often. So there is a switch to the bottom here for Bluetooth versus 2.4 gigahertz dongle. There are what look to be here trigger locks. I think that's what these are. And interestingly, you flip those. These turn kind of clicky, actually. So we'll see how the trigger locks are working here. We got some extra buttons. I'm guessing these are just extra programmable buttons. They say L5 and R5 on them. So more buttons. And let's see. I think that's about it. So certainly got a lot of buttons. Oh, we also have our microphone and or wired headset input here. If you're into that sort of thing, if you don't just have a headset that you use independently of the controller. So that is an option if you want to plug some headphones or something like that in here. So it looks to be a pretty good set of buttons. Actually fairly similar to what you get on the regular G7, except for you don't have the extra buttons up here, and you do not have trigger locks on the on the regular G7 SE here. But fairly similar. So far, just holding the controller. Like I said, I kind of like the rubberized grip here, although what will probably happen with this over time is it will tend to get dirty, but maybe that's a sacrifice to make for a more grippy controller. Now up top, it looks like it is, but it's not actually rubberized on the top. This is just gray plastic with a textured pattern here. It doesn't start to get rubberized until you get down to this part down here. In terms of feeling the hands, feels pretty good, actually. It has a little bit more weight to it than I think the regular G7 SE does. Yeah, maybe a little bit more weight. Not too much, though. It's not overly heavy. I'd say it feels honestly just about right. The sticks rotate around in here smoothly. They don't seem to be catching on anything. You know, D-pad is clicky. These are the feel like they're more mechanical buttons here, which I guess is not surprised, this being the higher end controller. But I think what we need to do now is get this thing hooked up to controller tester and see what this thing is about. Okay, so we have the G7 Pro all hooked up here. It looked like when I plugged it in, this indicator would flash red if I didn't have a whole lot of battery. So apparently there's enough battery in this to play around with it for a while. So we're using it wireless with the 2.4 gigahertz connection. I've got it plugged into my, you can't see it right now, but it is just up there, my Legion Go, which is why you see over here Legion Controller 1, Legion Controller 1, and the controller here is actually showing up as the third one, because I'm using my Legion Go as my testing platform here. So what we've got is, we've got this all hooked up, and let's take a look at the kind of the buttons and the features here. Yeah, these are micro switch buttons here, so if you are more into clicky buttons and less into mushy buttons, you're going to love these. I do happen to like micro switch buttons, so it's fine. They're micro switches, but they're not overly loud. I had another controller I tested before, the I think it was the Beitong, where everything was just really loud. But these are, you can hear them, but they're relatively quiet. The D-pad is also micro switch here. I put on the traditional D-pad here. Might look a little strange, yeah, because the faceplate accommodates for round ones instead of just the plus shape, but works fine. Feels more like the G7 D-pad that I'm used to, which is why I put this one on. I'll try the other ones later on. So, got our sticks here, our TMR sticks. I will say that these feel pretty darn smooth. I hadn't done the circularity test, but I doubt I'll have any trouble with it here. But these are definitely nice, smooth responding sticks. You know, we don't see snapping or anything else really with these. These perform pretty much how you would expect. The macro buttons aren't showing up on here, but I guess that's no surprise. The shoulders are actually not particularly clicky sounding, but they feel fine. Of course, we've got our analog triggers here. And we'll put this in air trigger mode, just so we can see what it's like. So, I guess you can set this in software mode too, but if you just use the switches, there's no problem here. The Beitong controller I tested also had a hair trigger mode, but for whatever reason, it was just slow to go into it. You would flip the switches and, you know, it'd take a couple of seconds easily for it to change over. This is just no problem. You can see, no problem with hair trigger mode. Actually turns it into clicky buttons if you go hair trigger mode here, which is interesting. I actually like the feedback. I think I'm going to enjoy using this. And I will probably leave it on hair trigger mode for games I'm going to be playing here, because my test suite of games here that I've been playing around with doesn't really use a whole lot of analog in the triggers, but that's okay. It's the kind of games I typically play. So far so good. Oh yeah, let's do the circularity test here, but I'm pretty sure this is going to give us reasonable results, because I was just looking at it without doing this. Of course, you know, sticks work great so far, at least in the tester. We will need to see how well they work in gameplay. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to start off with a little bit of Borderlands 2. I'm going to get that loaded, and then we will be right back. Okay, so we have Borderlands 2 up and running. We're going to go and shoot some bandits. and see how this controller performs for us. So let me get the sound on, and then we will get right to it. So far, this feels a lot like the G7 SE in terms of how the sticks are performing, which is not a bad thing because I actually really like that controller. So let's see if we can shoot anything with these sticks.
You ready to pull the trigger? You really blew them away.
Weakness leads to death.
Like what you see. No happy ending for them.
Too bad so far. See if we can shoot us some more bandits over here.
Go on, take a long, hard look.
That was my fault.
You sure know how to put on a show.
For my merry-go-round. Yours is
Where do you
perfect.
want me?
Everybody gets my place with me.
You ready to pull the trigger? I love the way you kill. Go on, take a long, hard look. Great shot, babe.
Anybody else left? There's a couple of guys. Oh, hey, grenade.
Take the shot, babe. You really blew them away.
But very nice to toss a grenade over here. I think they're done. Normally I might loot over there, but I don't think they have anything I need.
Where do you want me? You ready to pull the trigger? You sure know how to put on a show. Like what you see. I love the way you kill. Go on, take a long, hard look. Take the shot, babe.
Probably can't hear it on the microphone, but the controller vibration is working just fine. I don't think I actually tested it in the gamepad tester, but vibration here feels pretty good. Yeah, I can get a few bucks for this.
Where do you want me? Like what you see. Go on, take a long, hard look. Take the shot, babe. Ready to go again, huh?
If he just wants to run after me, then fine.
Where do you want me?
I think the bully mons are going to have their fun now.
You ready to pull the trigger? You really blew them away. No happy ending for them. Go on, take a long, hard look. Take the shot.
Grab some junk to sell here. Or don't grab that piece because it's under something. Well, so far so good with this controller. I have no complaints with how the sticks are working for aiming at stuff here in Borderlands 2. Haven't really used the D-pad much in the game, but, you know, seems to work fine for weapon switching and what have you. The air triggers are nice because you don't have to pull back very far at all to fire or to just take aim. So at least for playing a shooter like Borderlands, you want to play Borderlands with a controller, I think this is probably a pretty good controller to do it with. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at an emulated game. We're going to look at Colony Wars for the PlayStation because we're going to see how precisely we can fly with these analog sticks. So we'll take a quick break and load up Colony Wars, and we'll be right back. So we've got Colony Wars loaded up. We're going to test out this G7 Pro Controller with Colony Wars. Hopefully it will do pretty well. So Colony Wars is a PlayStation 1 game running on the DuckStation emulator, and it is kind of a space flight sim that was popular a long time ago, probably in the mid-90s. And it's one of my actually favorite PlayStation games that actually has full analog support. It also supported that gigantic PlayStation analog flight stick, which I have one of those. I still have it, and love that thing. But it's a little bit unwieldy for playing here at the desk. I got a small desk. So we're going to see how this controller here works with it. So let me start this first mission. We'll see if we can blow away these couple of enemy fighters that are going to show up without any difficulty and without using any stun missiles to slow them down.
This is Midas Starport. We are under attack. Please assist.
One down. Also want to avoid hitting the friendlies.
Only one enemy remaining.
This is Midas Starport. Surrounding area clear. Well done. You are clear to dock.
Commencing docking sequence.
So if a controller has a lot of snapping and is not very precise, usually you have to use stun missiles to chase down these couple of little maneuverable fighters in this first mission. So no real troubles with chasing them down here. The controls work really well. So I'd say this is as good as any controller I've ever used in terms of, you know, being able to accurately control the craft. Didn't take very long to get used to the response of the controller at all. Blew these three guys away with no problem. So using this for flight sim type games, if you're into this, if you're into the flight sims or space sims like I am, you know, probably be really nice to use with something like Everspace 2. in addition to the Colony Wars games and other games like that. So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing with the analog control. What we're going to do now is we'll load up another PlayStation game. We're going to load up Silhouette Mirage and check out the D-pad a little bit. So we'll be right back with Silhouette Mirage. Well, we got Silhouette Mirage up and running. We'll check out how this game plays with the G7 Pro. Let me get the sound on and we'll get started. A lot of text. So it looks like we can skip this, so that's what we're going to do. And more text.
Let's go! Hup! Reflector! 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 Hup!
The most efficient way to play this is to catch each one of these guys and bash them for all their money. For updates, upgrades, but that takes a while. Like this. We'll just get rid of these guys so we can move on.
Reflector! Reflector! Hup! Power punch! Hup! Power punch! Ow!
There we go. So far, no problems with the D-pad controls and the buttons.
Reflector! 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 Hup! Bam! Power punch! Power punch! Reflector! Hup!
Scanning targets in range.
So I don't see any problem playing a more D-pad centric game like Silhouette Mirage with this. I'm not a connoisseur of the D-pad, but if you don't mind micro switch D-pads, I think this one's fine. You can of course change out the center here to your preference. You can go for the Xbox style. You can go for the traditional kind of plus type, although the faceplate is designed to accommodate the round ones. Now, that's probably it for the gameplay test we'll do for this video. We don't want it to run too long, so we'll shut down the DuckStation emulator and come back and give some final thoughts on the G7 Pro controller. So after looking at this controller for a while, I realized I haven't said a whole lot about the controller dock station that it comes with. Guess I probably should before completely finishing up with my final thoughts here. So this is actually a nice touch to come with the controller. Provides a place to sit the controller so it's just not sitting on the desk, and hooking it up to like a charge station if you got one of those handy makes it just really convenient. Now, there is actually storage in the bottom here that's meant for the dongle, but if you're looking for some place, if you're actually using the 2.4 gigahertz dongle on your computer like I am, life hack, you can just put the spare D-pads in there and not worry about them getting lost. So I wish they would have a different compartment for the D-pads, but this will do since I'm going to be using this with the 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection pretty much all the time anyway. Now, as far as the controller itself goes, I'm actually very pleased with this. You know, I'm not the type to spend like $200 on a controller. I know you can get really fancy controllers for $200, but this one retails for $80, and typically Gamesir controllers go on sale every now and then, so you can probably pick it up for less than that. And I think for that price point, this is going to be pretty hard to beat. You know, you've got the extra buttons, you've got your trigger locks, you've got good micro switch buttons on here, you know, TMR sticks, so you've got all the new bells and whistles. You know, one thing I'll say about customization here is I'm not necessarily a fan of installing extra controller software, but if you do install the software, you can customize, of course, all these buttons, assign them pretty much whatever you want to, make macros out of them. And you can set up several different controller configurations if you like. You can switch back and forth between them with the M button here. But you know, a lot of that customization is kind of locked away behind their software, which again is something I'll fault them for a little bit. But you know, I tend to use the standard controller configurations anyway, so you know, for something like this, it's not going to bother me too much, I don't think. But you know, some of the extra stuff is locked behind software. In terms of using the controller and the feel so far, of course, I haven't had it for very long, but I really like the feel of this. This is going to be on my desk from now into the foreseeable future. I think I'll be using this kind of as my main controller when I play games at the desk here. So, you know, I do like it that much. You know, I think I will retire the G7 SE for a little while. Yeah, meet the new king right here. So far I'm pretty happy with this. Of course, since I just got this and haven't been using it for weeks, I haven't had a chance to test the battery life or anything like that. Although I suspect it's probably fine, but if it isn't, I will make a follow-up video, and if I have any problems with it. But so far, I would definitely recommend this if you're looking for a controller that's a bit higher end than your you know, $30 or $40 controllers, and you don't want to quite spend $200 for one of the super fancy ones. This one has a good feel, very accurate, it's very responsive. So far at least, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I will sit it in its little charger base and let it charge for a while. So think that's about all we need to say about the G7 Pro. Again, I'm really liking this one so far. Going to be, I think, using this for my main gaming controller for a while. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave me a like. If you want to see more content on gaming and handhelds and whatnot, I promise it's not just controllers. I've just got a lot of controllers in recently, so yeah, there's been a lot of controller videos over the past week or so. But I do hope to get the Legion Go 2 in, for example, when that comes out. And there'll be some other stuff as well. We got plenty of handhelds here. We'll do some more gameplay tests, stuff like that. If you're interested in that sort of thing, then, of course, subscribe to the channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.